Good morning, everyone. Once again, we welcome you to the International Conference on Revisiting History, Ethnicity and Myth in Literature 2023, organized by Amity School of Languages, Amity University, Rajasthan. We welcome you to our technical session 8 of day 2. I am Rohana Islam, and with me, Garima is there, the host for this session. In this session, we have 14 paper presentation. First, we would like to, I would like to give a brief of our chairperson, Dr. Vitika Gorai, ma'am. So, Dr. Vitika Gorai is a dedicated academician serving as an assistant professor in the Department of English at Indraprastha College for Women in University of Delhi. With an impressive decade-long tenure as faculty member at the institution, she has honed her expertise and made significant contribution to the academic community. Her scholarly pursuits revolve around diverse areas of interest, including Indian classical literature, philosophy, ethics, and cosmopolitanism. A profound focus of her research centers on the Mahabharata and the dialogic theory of Nikhil Bhakti, a subject she is exploring in the depth her doctoral studies. She has authored articles that have been published in esteemed journals indexed with corpus and Web of Science. Additionally, her scholarly contribution extends to book chapters in edited volumes published by reputed publication houses, showcasing the depth and breadth of her academic endeavors. So now I would like to, now we will move towards the paper presentation. Our first presenter is Indrani Das. Indrani Das, ma'am, are you there?
Just a second, dear. Thank you very much for your beautiful introduction. Anyways, congratulations to all of us for being there, for being a part of this seminar conference, and obviously just to be able to hear the lectures, which were plenary talks, which we all have been listening. So how much time we are going to dedicate for individual presentations? I mean, how much time do we have?
10 minutes, 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, so let's begin with Indrani Das, Dr. Indrani Das, if she is there. The title of her paper is Revisiting the Greco-Roman Myth of Venus in the Paintings of Sandro Botticelli. Indrani, if you are there, it's over to you. And please, if possible, while doing the presentation, keep your camera on so that, I mean, we are not talking to the computer, right? We're talking to a person. Indrani, are you there? Okay, in case Indrani is not available, then we can start with the next one. We have Priyadarshini.
No, ma'am, we don't have Priyadarshini.
Okay, then we have Shivangi Shailja. Shivangi.
Yes, ma'am, she is there. Yes, ma'am. Shivangi Shailja, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so Shivangi, it's the presentation is now for you, open for you. Please carry on.
Okay, just give me 2 minutes to share my screen.
You have 10 minutes, so you have to do it as fast as possible.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
So Shivangi's title is a revisionist study of Indian mythology with special reference to the Palace of Illusions by Chindravan. Yeah.
So, ma'am, I'm not allowed to share my screen. It is said that host disabled participants.
Okay, it's all right. You can
now now you can do it.
Okay, now you can do it.
Okay.
Yes, Shivangi, you please start.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is Shivangi Shailja, research scholar from Amity School of Languages, Amity University, Rajasthan. My guide is Dr. Manoj Kumar. The topic which I'm discussing today, is a revisionist study of Indian epic, Mahabharata, with special reference to Palace of Illusion by Chitra Banerjee. Myth and mythology. When we denote something as a myth, we mean it's not true. Myth can be understood as a false story and not to be taken seriously. Still, myths have been taken seriously by scholars and most importantly by generations and generations of people who have heard these stories and found them worth telling again and again. Indian myths are not merely fables, they hold moral values and cater to different ways to find solace. The study of mythology is no longer seen as an escape from reality to a world full of fantasy, but as a journey to the past in search of truth and reality. So if a myth isn't just a story that someone made up or a word used to label something as false, then what is myth? Myth comes from the Greek word mythos, which means word or story. So myth is a special kind of story and have two primary characteristics, significance and staying power. Significance, this means the subject matter is essential, something about how the world works or how things came to be. And staying power, these are the stories that have survived centuries, sometimes millennia, and this is a testament to the deep meaning or functional importance of these stories to the people who hear and tell them. Myth, legends, and history. Myth, legends, and history are three pillars of information that are passed from one cultural space to another. They represent the image of the society as well as cultures. Myth always engross readers. The stories of these myths contain the heroes and act of heroism, giving negligible importance to women and portraying them as helpless, sacrificial, and surrounded by pain. The depiction of women remained as a symbol of daughterhood, sisterhood, wifehood, or motherhood. The Mahabharata of Vyas shows Draupadi as a character born to destroy the Kauravas. She was accused of being the entire reason for the war of Kurukshetra. But in the writing of Chitra Banerjee, that is the Palace of Illusion, Chitra Banerjee gives ample evidence that Draupadi was not the only reason behind the war. However, her humiliation in Kaurava's court leads them towards destruction, but the entire war has different dimensions. The Palace of Illusion appears to discard and overthrow the ancient stereotypical image of Draupadi and other women as well, focusing on telling the reality of female agony realistically. The women in the novel have a place and a role to play. The idea behind my research. Composed several years ago, the Mahabharata continued to be retold in various literary, graphic, and visual media. Even though it is true that Mahabharata and Ramayana are both important in Indian society, it is Mahabharata that is associated more with the workings of society and behavior of humans than the Ramayana. Most of the characters in Mahabharata are more human than divine. This provides a scope to delve deeper and analyze different shades of a character. Objective of my research. Though Draupadi was a significant cause behind the war of Mahabharata, she was not given proper treatment in earlier version of the epic. All the earlier versions seem to focus on male heroes while female hold the backstage, reflecting the marked prejudices against the female gender. The objective of this research paper is to study myth, history, and representation of women in the Palace of Illusion, giving it a new and justified meaning altogether. Introduction. Women's writings such as Chitra Banerjee Devikarani's Palace of Illusions, Kavita Khan's Karna's Wife, Pratibha Ray, Yagyaseni, and many more have gained momentum in the present age. Moreover, a fresh introspection of mythology has shattered some misconceptions about Indian women. In Hindu mythology, a few women stand out as Draupadi, the most complex and exciting character of Mahabharata. The Palace of Illusions is the rendition of Mahabharata told from the viewpoint of Draupadi, a woman living in patriarchal society. The time of Mahabharata represents the biggest crisis of entire civilization. All remarkable men of that time fought the war of Kurukshetra, but there is another way of perceiving, that is, examining the crisis in mythology from a feminist viewpoint, feminist perspective. The original epic was about gods, men, princes, and warriors, in which there was the absence of hardline touch of epic. Divakarani presents Draupadi's life as a series of choices made by her and not by the people around, which gives her a voice in the broad patriarchal society prevailing in ancient India. In the novel, The Palace of Illusions, Draupadi's character is in the form of a woman who can overcome self-sacrifice and can speak up her mind. Her first impression was of education, which she was not given as her brother was given priority over her. Her father and tutor ignored her education. This shows that nobody cared about women's education at that time. Draupadi was just a weapon to both Panchal and Pandavas to strengthen their kingdoms, as her Swayamvar was conducted by her father to lure Arjuna to Panchal. Also, Arjuna participated as he needed allies in the war against Kauravas. Divakarani said that in this male-dominated society, the words and promises made to others are given priority over the feelings and emotions of women. Women were merely puppets who had to obey orders without comment. Draupadi raised her voice in the court of Duryodhan, where she was ventured out by her husbands. The illustrations of this scene in the novel itself prove that the law, which was the same for all, was not meant for women. Chitra Banerjee Divakarani's novel, The Palace of Illusion, portrays Draupadi as an authoritative and independent woman who shares an indistinguishable platform with men around her rather than being pliant.
Shailja, you have 3 minutes to wrap up. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Divakarani's interpretation of the epic provide a complete narrative, sometimes missing from the original epic, giving more substantial role to the women of the society, portraying them as equal in the society. Conclusion, The Palace of Illusion redefines the value of women in society and reinscribe what we feel about women's life. The revisionist literary narrative helps to bring about modern issues such as identity, marginalization, and gender discrimination of women in patriarchal society, shown through a mythical character. The feminist writers brought forth the sufferings of women to the world. They analyzed how women's role was determined by society even before they were born, and how society suppressed them and considered them as inferior to men. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailja. Shivangi, sorry. Thank you, Shivangi. I hope, I'm sure there will be questions. Actually, I also have 1 or 2 basic questions, but I think I should continue with the presentations first, and then we will go on with the questions. So please stay back because I also have questions. Thank you. Next, can we have Indrani? Indrani is there. Indrani Das.
Indrani, yeah, ma'am, she is there. She is there.
Okay, if she is there, is she audible? No, she is not audible. So Priyadarshini again.
Priyadarshini.
Akshata Bhatt.
Am I audible?
Indrani.
Please.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes. Yes. And could you please just shut my video because I'm not feeling very well. I have fever. Is it possible? Yes, I will read my paper. I will present. And there was a PPT. I sent a PPT picture photo. Can you show that?
Indrani, it's all right. You can just read your paper. I think that's also all right.
Yes, but I would like if you can show my PPT, which I sent. That is me. Is it available?
If the organizer can do it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
So where she has sent the PPT?
I don't.
Where the conference where we sent a paper, the conference.
Indrani, I think it will be difficult for them because I think the students don't have
Okay. It doesn't matter. But actually, I wanted to discuss the title of my paper. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for giving me this opportunity and the entire Amity team. I'm grateful to them. And my paper is revisiting the Greco-Roman myth of Venus in the paintings of Sandro Botticelli, a Florentine whose time is 1445 to 1510. And actually, if you could see the paintings, the one is called The Spring and the other is The Birth of Venus. In both the paintings, we find the revival of Greco-Roman ideals and the homocentric individuality of the Renaissance, which are predominantly reflected in the visual arts during that period. And during the Renaissance, the representation of mythological subjects in work of visual art was part of broader artistic and literary European culture, with its origins in education in Latin and sometimes in Greek classics. The Renaissance, the Greco-Roman myths were viewed as something apart, the product of a particular historical period, characterized by their distinct forms of visual expressions. Art for the humanistically educated elite in Renaissance Italy was one way of understanding the ancient world. Their initial approach to the Greco-Roman culture was through studying Latin and Greek texts, most of which were unknown to Italian scholars a century or two earlier. But very soon, it became a popular practice to visually reproduce classical myths or traditionally familiar stories about gods and heroes in the manner of the ancients, all'antica, and decorate private domestic space with those paintings by the aristocrats. During that time, the Roman myths created in most cases, the base for both literary and artistic revival of the classical models. In general, paintings of classical myths were created without much help from antique artifacts, but because they were not available. But on the inventions by contemporary humanists appropriating according to the tastes and demands of the literate elite of that period. Almost every painting on classical mythology was a commissioned painting, and the choice of a particular episode or the combination of stories to be painted in a series of pictures was often done in consultation with a humanist who was at the service of a patron. Botticelli was admitted at a very early age to the Medici court, where he met humanist philosophers like Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola, and poets like Poliziano, whose influence can be traced in his mythological representations. A study reveals that the goddess Venus assumes new meanings and symbols different from her traditional role in the paintings of Botticelli. The figures of Venus in both those paintings have an articulated chin, high cheeks, and domed forehead, and it is astounding to see the subtle transformation with which he turned them into markers of ideal beauty, considering his age. During the Roman period, the goddess Venus was thought to be the daughter of Jupiter, the wife of Vulcan or Mars, and the mother of Cupid, and became one of the most important goddesses of the Roman pantheon. She was the protector deity of love, beauty, sex, fertility, prosperity, and victory, whom some additional features were added of Greek Aphrodite. And thus she assumed many aspects. In the myth, Venus or Aphrodite is born of sea foam. Roman theology presents Venus as the yielding, watery female deity essential to the generation and balance of life. And Venus becomes a popular subject of painting and sculpture during the Renaissance period in Europe as a classical figure for whom nudity was her natural state, as an embodiment of spiritual beauty and physical beauty. It was socially acceptable to depict her unclothed. As the goddess of sexuality, a degree of erotic beauty in her presentation was justified, which appealed to many artists and their patrons. Around 1478, Botticelli was commissioned by the Medicis the great table called La Primavera or the Spring, the most celebrated mythological painting of the 15th century. It is one of the most lyrical creations of the Renaissance, but also one of the most mysterious and complex regarding its origin and meaning, despite numerous proposed hypotheses. The message of the work of art can be received on different levels. The conceptual meaning, dictated by the poet Poliziano, the Venus Humanitas, will be clear only to the philosophers, but the general public can find the pleasantness in the orange orchard, the flower-studded meadows, in the rhythm of the figures, in the attractive beauty of bodies and faces, in the harmonious flow of lines, in the delicate play of colors. There is perhaps a moral lesson hidden in it too. The young Lorenzo di Pier Francesco di Medici, to whom the painting was destined, was supposed to meditate on the unusually chaste effigy of Venus, the queen, contrasted to the carnal embrace of Sapphire on the right, which transformed his wife Chloris into Flora, the dispersion of flowers to the delicate dance of graces, almost imitating the absorbed Mercury who dispelled the clouds. The figures posed in front of a stud, shady orchard built up the background. The meadows strewn with innumerable flowers in imitation of Flemish tapestry and orange trees laden with oranges created a non-religious atmosphere where the religious connotation of Venus is subjugated, so that the painting has been called La Primavera or the spring, and not the reign of Venus as some Neoplatonist critics have suggested. Even the figure of Venus placed in the middle as a reigning deity does not resemble any Greco-Roman model. Some critics have attempted to visualize a philosophical message where the manifestation of pagan divinity is appropriated to a Neoplatonic re-evaluation of the classical myth. But we can easily discern a point of meditation characteristics of the Florentine culture. The conscience of living in the present marked by a grave economic and political crisis from which the artist tried to escape, idealizing a mythical age of gold at the beginning of human history, avoiding the ugliness and violence prevalent at the time. It is a Florentine dream to return to the lap of nature, untouched by civilization's corruption. La Primavera can also...
Indrani ma'am, you have 3 minutes to wrap up your paper, please.
Okay, thank you. La Primavera can also represent an ideal human paradise immersed in natural beauty, inhabited by the eternally young and beautiful, living in the perfect universal harmony. The second one, The Birth of Venus, is a 1486 painting that Lorenzo il Magnifico perhaps commissioned for his nephew Giovanni di Pierfranco de Medici. It depicts the goddess Venus having emerged from the sea as a fully grown woman, arriving at the seashore, drifted by the winds, where the hour of spring waits for her with a cloak. The subject comes from Hesiod's Theogony, published in Italian translation in 1474 in Ferrara, and from Ovid's Metamorphoses, who described the hour handing a cloak to Venus and Rome, latter from humanist Poliziano. The iconography of the painting is very similar to a description in the poem by Angelo Poliziano, the contemporary of Botticelli, entitled Le stanze per la giostra, written between 1475 to 78. It seems that Botticelli knew this poem when he painted it, and for Venus, he had in his mind the portrayal of the goddess in antique statues, especially the one popular in Florentine aristocratic homes, a gorgeous nude woman holding her left hand to Pudenda, her right hand to her breasts. Botticelli retained the classical features but added long golden hair to make the image more contemporary connecting it with contemporary images of Saint Mary Magdalene or Petrarch's description of Laura, his lady love. Savonarola's fiery preaching, objecting against the revival of pagan culture, might have cast gloomy shadows over this painting, making it look rather rigid and pale compared to the earlier one, even contributing to the deliberations of the clear and conscious recall of the baptism of Christ, painted by Verrocchio and his disciple Leonardo da Vinci in 1475.
Are you done now?
Just a line. Recently, questions have been raised about Neoplatonism as the dominant intellectual system of the late 15th century Florence. The scholars have indicated that there might be other ways to interpret Botticelli's mythological paintings. In particular, both the spring and the birth of Venus have been seen as wedding presents that suggest appropriate behavior for the bride and the groom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Indrani ma'am. Thank you for this beautiful paper, but we missed the pictures actually. It would have been great actually if we could see the pictures also. Anyways, thank you. Can we have Priyadarshini? If Priyadarshini is there.
Priyadarshini ma'am, are you there? No ma'am, she is not there ma'am.
Akshata?
Akshata ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah, please. So Akshata, you have 10 minutes. I will give you a reminder when 3 minutes left.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So esteemed chair of the panel, organizing team and co-panelists, a very good morning to all of you. We're just short of the noon. And I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, my screen is visible.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sure that all of us gathered here would agree that climate change as a collective environmental crisis is one of the most pivotal challenges confronting humankind today. So I align my work in the field with the thematic foci of this conference, and I would like to present my paper, the title of which has been indicated on the screen. The core argument of my paper is that the contemporary environmental writing in India has adopted something that is called as a unique convergent analysis model to engage its readers in the complex issues of climate change. Now, what does this convergent analysis model do? Essentially, as my paper sees it, it blends the causality of science with the vitality of story. And it's in the latter part that I align my work with the thematic focus of this conference. It does so in order to bring a holistic understanding of the multidimensional issues of climate change to general readership. My paper further contends that the convergent analysis model of environmental writing, which is currently emerging in India, is especially useful because climate change as we know it is enormously distributed across time and space in planetary history, and it's one of the challenges. And therefore, any future projection of related events or any course corrections that we may like to address can come only through a dichronous and synchronous hyperlocal and global analyses of nature-human interactions. The arguments of this paper have been postulated. I put forth my survey and methodology here. Two primary texts have been taken. Amitav Ghosh's well-known The Hungry Tide, which has been categorized as fiction, and Aarti Kumar Rao's recent publication, Margin Lands, Indian Landscapes on the Brink. I will be referring to it as Margin Lands henceforth, which has been characterized as non-fiction. Three nodal indices have been used as baselines of the study: historiography, ethnography, and mythology. Here is a brief tabular summary of the findings which have been achieved through both primary texts. Apart from primary texts, I have used IPCC Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change synthesis reports that are published every year, summaries for policymakers, the Global North, Global South analysis as per the Brandtline report of 1980s. And through this, 4 thematic tracks have been identified: role of historiography, native lore, and mythology in building past-present continuum, reinforcement of ethnographic land lexicon, significance of microcultural and hyperlocal specificities in political land management, and assessment of climate risks, particular to the global south, the region where we are presently. So I will be presenting, as per the instructions of the organizers, core findings of my paper through textual analysis. The first thematic track. So driven by feedback loops and tipping points, the determination of causality in global environmental phenomena is actually considered to be a very difficult step in climate science by both climate scientists as well as anthropologists. But what helps, according to my paper, is borrowing literary historian Ian Bocham's concept of forcings and forces. So what are forcings? Forcings are biogeological occurrences or elements that impact the planetary system on a large scale. Humans have little or no control over their cause and effect circuits. Forces, however, are purposefully willed human actions. They are the ones which have a major impact on environmental environment through human anthropogenic interference. Now, my contention is that contemporary environmental writing in India actually tries to bridge this gap between how and why and between forcings and forces, thereby facilitating a wantage present-past archival continuum. Now, the Hungry Tide, for instance, converges historiography, native lore, and mythology with geology. A good instance of this is the Matla lore, which has been retold in the story. I have included the quote there, which I'm not going to reread, but I'll present my analysis. Now, steeped in colonial past, the Matla lore, Matla disaster is actually a textbook case in ecological mismanagement, as Ghosh's narrative tells us. The technocratic overdrive and imperialist superiority of the Ingres town planners, as he calls them, prompts them to build a new port on the banks of the river Matla without taking the river's unique geospatial positioning and ecosystemic placement in view. Now, the legend of this river has become somewhat of an oral historiography and is actually a reinforcement of microclimatic science, which is often ignored in blanket appropriations of macro development models. Akin to this lore, Margin Lands, Aarti Kumar Rao's text, also draws upon the Farakka anecdote from the colonial history, ratified and concretized in independent India, to point out patterns of continuity in administrative follies apropos environment. The Farakka barrage, built by ignoring Hooghly's identity as a tidal estuary, not only fails in its mission to make the river navigable, but also leads to further issues of erosion and unprojected floodings. Here again, the writing of Margin Lands shows the interrelations between geological forcings and human-induced forces, as the distinction has been made. So the major finding here is that the text try to tell us that any political decision in riverine management should not only take into consideration potamology and limnology, but even look into cortex of history, indigenous archives, and collective memory. My second thematic track is on land legacy.
You have 2 minutes to wrap up.
Okay.
2 minutes to wrap up.
Okay. I try to show through my textual analysis of the Hungry Tide and the words that are used by the writer to blend poetic retention and hydrological parturition. He speaks about specific kinds of ebb tide and flow tides, etc. Margin Lands also brings native land lexicon and shows the fallacy of semantic erosion and how the fallacy of ignoring this experiential language and coming up with universal theoretical knowledge can actually damage hyperlocal context. Similarly, hyperlocal specificities are explored in both Margin Lands and Hungry Tides by taking into consideration the biological workings of the mangrove thickets in the latter and ice stupa, a chiroscopic chirospheric enfolds of Leh Ladakh by Aarti Kumar Rao, through which she shows, or both of them show, how environmental policy making needs to take all these texts into consideration and not simply scientific literature. The last one is, of course, how climate risks are very distinct in the global south. And both these texts actually take us to the subaltern as well as the sub-subaltern narratives of riparian and alongshore communities, artisanal fisherfolk, boatsmen, littoral denizens, tiger widows. Both these fiction and non-fiction works explore these. And the finding is that both texts showcase that climate risks in the global south cannot be weighed along the same tracks as those in the global north. The conclusion of my paper is that the archival continuum is facilitated by the convergent analysis model by A, engaging the subconscious with the subterranean, increasing self-reflexivity of readers, and making our reading of and about environment transformational instead of merely transactional. These are my references. Thank you very much to the chair and to my co-panelists.
Thank you, Akshata. It was a very interesting paper. Had we had enough time, we could have actually explored the paper in a much better way. And this is actually the need of the time. Obviously, we are dealing with a climate crisis, and we need to have an understanding about how literature can help us, can coexist with in different ways to bring forward new changes
Thank you so much.
Changing the society. Thank you, Akshata. Again, we have can we have Ramya?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, all right. Shall I share my screen?
Please do.
Yeah, okay.
So you have 10 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's visible, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. Okay, thanks. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ramya. I'm a research scholar in the Department of English and Cultural Studies in Christ University, Bangalore. So my paper that I'm very happy to share with you today is titled Devolution in the Symbiocene Era, Ethnicity, Myth, Solastalgia, and Contested Cultural Landscape in Avasa Vyuham. Now, I know that I've just thrown a lot of terminologies here, right in the title. So let me begin by giving you just a moment. Can you please hold on? I'm unable to move to the next slide. Yeah, okay. So let me give you a briefing about some of the key tenets or terminologies that I've used here before I move on to the paper as such. So cultural landscape is understood as the product of human actions and interventions onto the natural landscape. Basically, it's a product of our culture. And, it's basically acting as a medium to form, what is the resultant of human actions on nature. And solastalgia, very much similar to what we already are familiar with, the concept of nostalgia, similar yet different, is a new terminology, a new coinage, which shows the emplaced or the lived experience of negative environmental change. Now, nostalgia, as we understand, is something that is a displaced emotion. We miss our land or our home when we are away from it. Contrary to that, solastalgia is something that is lived. We live in a place and we experience nostalgia right there as we live in it because it's unrecognizable anymore because of our actions, which are most probably reckless to nature. Now, the next terminology that is key to my paper is symbiosis. Okay, this is again, this was coined for the first time in about 2014, later developed. The name was introduced in 2014 or so, and it was developed only in 2022. Now, this is understood as a new era, as a post-Anthropocene era, where humans reintegrate themselves into nature and natural systems. So, the pedestal upon which we've placed ourselves in evolutionary biology, that is kind of stripped down, and that pedestal is nothing more than a vantage point. And that is the crux of the argument in this paper. And the text for analysis that I've chosen is actually a film titled, it's a Malayalam language film from Kerala. It's called Avasa Vyuham, which literally translates into habitat. The full title, I'll be talking about that in the next slide. So this is the overview of my paper. I'll be talking a very brief, information about the movie as such, the film. The film actually provides a cultural map of the region called Puduvaipin in Kochi in Kerala. Okay, Kochi is famous for its multi-ethnic background, and that is into where this very enigmatic character called Joey comes in, who is completely stripped of all sorts of socio-economic, cultural identity markers. So he is the new human. whether he is an evolved life form or a devolved life form is for us to deliberate upon. Now, the argument that I propose in this paper is that the film uses transcultural mythical elements to abridge and subvert identity markers to signify the ushering in or the heralding of the Symbiocene era. And the theories I've used to support my arguments analysis are, tenets taken from humanistic geography and cultural geography, namely, which I've already mentioned, cultural landscapes, solastalgia. These are all very, terra-related, terra as in earth-related emotions and terminologies. And the conclusion that the paper, that my analysis will be leading on to, is that the enigmatic other, in the conventional sense of the term, is an embodiment of the Symbiocene era. That's basically the character, the protagonist, Joy. So Avasa Vyuham, fully titled as The Arbit Documentation of an Amphibian Hunt, directed by Krishant, released in the year 2022, is a film that shows the arrival of an enigmatic character called Joey, who has absolutely no identity markers to himself. People just ascribe the name to him, Joy, because he brings joy to people whenever he's there. Not just to people, to the animals, to the entire ecosystem around him. As the poster of the film suggests, he is one with nature. He's always in the water. He can talk to fishes with a particular kind of sound, and the fishes and all the life forms just come out to greet him when he makes a certain call. So this particular character, towards the end of the film, through a very interesting turn of events, he actually undergoes a metamorphosis in which he turns into an unidentified creature, which is, people speculate to be a mammal and an amphibian. So as per evolutionary biology, it is understood that human beings came from, or life as we know it, originated from the sea. Sea creatures turn into amphibians and later to human beings, is what is understood. So this particular film kind of takes a step back and tracks, or maybe we can say devolves, shows how human beings will devolve, maybe a dystopian point of view. So this man actually devolves into an amphibious creature, which is ruthlessly murdered. And various religious organizations, international attention is focused on this region, Puduvaipin, because of this event. And it's a international trendsetter. People look into this process, and it's very interesting how people are obsessed about this person or this creature who does not have identity of its own. We understand that this person or the creature is Earth itself, as my analysis will reveal. So the paper is divided into 3 sections. The first section talks about Puduvaipin, the region, the setting of the film, and solastalgia. As I mentioned earlier, solastalgia is the emplaced or lived experience of negative environmental change. So what's happening in the film, and interestingly, what's happening actually in reality in Puduvaipin, is the reckless and unplanned development that Kochi has been, witnessing for the past decade. And one particular incident that stands out is the construction of Indian Oil Corporation's LPG terminal at Puduvaipin, which is one of the most densely populated islands in the whole of India. So you can understand how drastic it can be, the effect if fire breaks out. And in this region, Section 144 of the Code of Criminal Procedure has been impositioned by the government so that the people would not come together and protest. They are not supposed to, come together in groups or protest or hold meetings. They're supposed to be indoors. And this particular picture that I've shown here is a still from the film, which is actually a real life footage that has been taken from Puduvaipin, where you can see that a girl in school uniform is leading the protest. So education and all kinds of primary requirements takes a backseat when your survival itself becomes questioned and problematized. And so the disruption of natural ecosystem is being shown here. And in a very interesting manner, it shows how this film shows how the word subaltern extends its boundaries to include not just human beings who are, in the conventional term, belonging to the lower strata of the society, but also animals and all kinds of life forms. As you can see, Save Kochi, it's very poignantly portrayed here. And there are several different depictions of actual researchers conducted in Puduvaipin, incorporated into the film. So this is forming a mockumentary of sort, using fiction and facts, forming a faction sort of, film. So from this particular section, we can conclude that the cultural landscape as shown in the film Geography of Puduvaipin yes, ma'am, is essentially contested, and that is the reason for solastalgia. Now, the enigmatic other in a contested cultural landscape, this is the character Joey. He is always portrayed as some kind of animal. He's devoid of normal human interaction. He's washed up on the shore like a whale or another sea creature. So Joey defies conventional markers of identity like ethnicity, race, class, caste, religion, all of that. He is identified as the, certain dialogues in the movie. He's being called migrant beggar, a shrewd criminal, and an anti-national terrorist. So he is very evidently othered in the film. So he's not a typical human with a traditional set of identity markers. And he transcends identity by metamorphosizing into an identified creature. You can see the webbed formations in his hands there. And the second picture shows how worms were collected from his legs. Okay, he was basically decomposing inside, and from the worms, a new kind of ecosystem had formed. He represents Gaia, so we can conclude that he is Earth itself. And as Albrecht, who coined the term celestalgia and symbiocene, says that he is, a human who is in the process of completely reintegrating into the rest of life. Now, the third is Joy is the embodied symbiocene. He is the representation of the embodiment of symbiocene era. Joey is a post-Anthropocene being, and his representation of the new symbiocene era characterized by human intelligence and praxis that replicate the symbiotic, the word symbiotic is important here, and mutually reinforcing life-producing forms and processes found in living system. In the picture here, I don't know if you can see it, what he is looking down upon are turtles and crabs coming out at his call, and he is being utilized or taken advantage of by many fishermen. So these pictures show how international attention has been, brought on to this particular character who was started metamorphosizing. Religious enthusiasts, scientists, historians, news anchors from Paris and other countries tag him as mermaids. This is where transcultural element comes in. Some people call him Frogmander, some people call him Satan, God. All right. I'll just conclude. So yeah, basically Joy stands for what is symbiocene, seamlessly reintegrating back into life cycles. And these are the skeletons in which after his death, his skeleton is actually forming an ecosystem of its own. You can see lichen forming and frogs inhabiting his skull. So the film signifies the symbiocene through Joy by using transcultural mythical elements to subvert markers of difference and discrimination. So these are the works cited, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Ma'am.
Thank you, Ramya. It was a very interesting paper, and I mean, immediately after this, I'm going to watch this documentary. This is so interesting, and I'm sure
yes.
this paper is actually so. I mean, I must say it's stimulating enough to make this other readers here, other panelists here, to be interesting enough to watch it. And this is absolutely interesting. Thank you, Ramya. And can we have now Hannah Sirli? Do we have Hannah or Vaidehi?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am, Vaidehi Hairani hai, but Hannah nahi hai yaar.
कोई बात नहीं. Vaidehi, is she there? Can she hear us? Okay.
Yeah, shall I start?
Hello, who is this? Vaidehi?
Yes, ma'am. Shall I start?
Please, please.
A very good afternoon, respected ma'am and all the presenters. My today's topic is mythical echoes and human whispers, Urmila and Mandodari's parallel world. Urmila and Mandodari are very well-known characters from the epic Ramayana, and both these characters somewhere are in a way we can say voiceless or being given less importance. So how does their world works? So talking about myth versus reality, myth, this is a concept referred to the comparison contracts between wildly held beliefs or misconceptions and what is actually the truth or what is hidden. So normally we see that myth does come with various kinds of messages for the society, like providing different kind of value systems for life. While reality, we find out that at somewhere does this value system, plays a vital role, or are they relevant in the contemporary time or not? With these two characters, we are going to go ahead. So while we talk about Urmila, normally, if we go to the original Ramayana, that is the Adi Kavya written by Valmiki Ramayana, we find out that Urmila has a very limited role in that particular text. Only she's being referred only twice, like once when Sita Swayamvar is going on and Sita Ram are going to get married, and then father suggests that there are other three brothers and the sister should get married to them, and no choices are being asked to her at that time. And also when Ram, Sita and Lakshman are going for the Vanvas, we find out that Lakshman just informs her to just stay back and take care of mother-in-law. So in a way, just these two episodes, we don't find other than that Urmila has played any vital role, or she has played a vital role, but the significance given to her is quite less. While coming down to literature or Malayalam literature, we find out that these interpretations do come up with an episode of Urmila sleeping for 14 years and in a way sacrificing her life for husbands and families well-being. Like if she sleeps for 14 years, then only Lakshman can be awake and help Ram and Sita covering their Vanvas. Again, these are retellings. We don't find Urmila getting a much important role in Valmiki Ramayana. Now coming to the modern era, we find out Kavita Kane coming up and giving voice to Urmila. So when we actually read Sita's sister, we find out that Urmila did had a certain kind of voice, did had a certain kind of feelings which remains hidden in the earlier retelling or in the original Ramayana. So here a dialogue says that grief demands answer, but one doesn't always get them. Here actually we do get kind of exposure to reality rather than the mythical lessons we learn from Valmiki Ramayana or any other retellings. So Kavita Kane does bring a kind of inner voice which is hidden in Urmila, that there is a lot of grief which demands answer, but one doesn't always get them. But here we find out that there is actually a space for her where she could speak this. Otherwise, we don't see that anywhere in original one, she is able to say certain things. Like even when she is getting married, she is not able to speak about her choice. So the findings we can see here is that in mythical, we find that she is seen as a symbol of silent devotion and sacrifice as per myth, and she is portrayed as a very devoted wife, a very devoted daughter-in-law who is doing things and the act of self-sacrifices. So a very ideal person or very ideal woman as per the rules of the society. However, the reality surrounding Urmila is quite different, that many retellings doesn't give her that space where she can speak for herself. And some of the writers in the contemporary time, we find out that they give that space to her where she can speak something. And the next character is Urmila. Again, Urmila is known as a dutiful wife of Ravana. So whatever Ravana is doing, we find that Mandodari, in a way, she is standing next to the husband. Even when we go to the Bhakti tradition, we find out Goswami Tulsidas also highlighting her as an advisor who is stopping Ravana to do to stop abducting Sita, or to send her back, because somewhere she comes to know that she has that sense that Ram would come and kill Ravana. So for the benefit of the husband, we find her that she is pleading and advising her. Even in Valmiki Ramayana, we find certain things. But some of the reality, if we see that, how does a wife would, like when our husband would kidnap someone else or is fond of someone else. So when we come down to Kritivasa's Bengali Ramayana, we find out that this particular
Hello. Hello.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, hi. Hello. What's the problem? Is the problem is with me or with?
Ma'am, with Vaidehi only.
No, ma'am. Sorry, the connection, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry,
Hello?
right now I'm just share the screen.
Yeah, Vaidehi, you can continue from the findings. Yes.
Okay. So while we are talking about Mandodari, we find out that in myth, she is portrayed as a wise, virtuous queen and the epitome of grace and beauty and dignity. While if we look from human perspective, or we look from the contemporary time, we also find out that she is hiding a kind of lots of emotional burden upon her, that she's not able to say certain things. Certain dilemmas are there where she cannot voice what she actually feels. So if we go to conclusion, we'll find out that the stories of Urmila and Mandodari demonstrate how myth used to convey human values, ethics, and duties. However, in contemporary time, we see that a kind of picture has been brought in the contemporary time by the writers, that the parallel worlds of the characters by giving them voice. So mythical echoes do have its importance, that that this myth are being transferred from generation to generation by different retellings. But on the reality, we also see that how far this particular values or this particular things are applicable in the contemporary time. So in a way, we find that women does have this parallel world, the world which is on the superficial level, the world which is there inside them. So this was about my paper. I've just tried to brief in
Thank you.
reference, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Vaidehi. Thank you for your paper. I mean, it was an interesting paper, definitely. Although I have not read much about Urmila, but I'm really interested and intrigued by Mandodari's character. You can also think about Mandodari and Draupadi. There are certain similarities if you just read the actual, the original source of Mahabharata. I mean, there is no original as such, but whatever our basic understanding of originality. In that way, you can see there are certain similarities with Draupadi also, because Mandodari was a fiery woman like Draupadi, although there was the exploitation and everything was obviously there, but there are certain things we can definitely learn from these two characters. Anyways, thank you, Vaidehi. We can
thank you very much, ma'am. Actually, I was looking for a topic for my next paper, so thank you for your suggestion. I'll definitely work on it.
Thank you so much. Christopher, do we have Christopher?
Yes, ma'am, I'm there.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, ma'am, I'm sharing the screen.
Yes. So you have 10 minutes.
Okay, ma'am. Myself, Sijay Krishavar, PhD research scholar, and I am doing my research in St. John's College of Arts and Science. I have chosen a title as Facing a Racial Identity hinted in the society exhibited in Philip Roth's novel The Human Stain. Now let us see about the author. He is an MA graduate from the University of Chicago. The collection of Goodbye Columbus had a National Book Award. Roth was awarded of Pulitzer Prize, and in 2011, Roth won the Man Booker International Prize, and he had retired from writing during the period of 2011. Now let us see about the book The Human Stain. Philip Roth has expressed majestic skills about American Jews. He used to write mostly about the sufferings of the American Jews, etc. The themes are mostly based on the Jewish American. Roth does not follow any writing formula. When we see in the American period, during the period of Philip Roth, every author has to follow certain formulas for writing. They should not write about American Jewish very deeply, etc. But Roth has omitted everything, and he started to writing the sufferings about the sufferings of the American Jewish. He thought to bring to every reader so that the American Jewish can come up brightly in the future. We can see that in during 1820, the Jewish population was 3,000 in 1820, and it increased as 30,000 in 1880. Because in 19th century, Jewish Americans are mostly from Central Europe. During 19th century, there was war in the Central Europe, and they had immigrant to America. They thought that the America is the golden land. But when they came to America, they thought we can do a lot of works because there was a lot of companies, etc. But when they immigrated to America, they were not allowed to enter into the city. They were caught up in the border itself. In the border, they have set small tents, etc. In the tent, they does not have school facility. They does not have water facility, etc. So that there was lack of hospital, so that many new diseases start to create, and due to no proper sanitary facilities, many of them started to lost their life. They thought the America as the golden land, but because of it, many of them lost their life. In this book, the Philip Roth says about a hero, Coleman Silk. He is a light-skinned person, because he is also immigrant from the Central Europe. His family was here for 3 generations, but he is light black in color, so that he was educated in Harvard University, and when he was he got job as the assistant professor, but he was a light black skinned person, so that in the staff room, etc., he was segregated by everyone. But he is a multi-talent person, but when he tries to bring out his ideas, no one accepted his ideas. But his ideas were very well, but because of his historical background, no one likes him, because he belongs to a black, like that they says that, and no one likes him. Here we can see that because of this, Jewish American have created a new hybrid form of Judaism, merging American values and behaviors with those from historical Jewish traditions. We can see that because many of the Jewish people were omitted, so that they try to mingle with the Jewish American background. Like that, they also started to follow the American tradition by mixing up with their histories. So that we can see that the Jewish immigrants started to write up their new history by adding certain values from the American history, etc. So that some of the people were started to follow the American tradition, and they started slowly to enter into the American center, etc. Through this other, we can see the contemporary America, they are interlacing the experimental world with the actual world, because he was brought up in the New England and he was working in the Aetna College, but due to his color, he did not get any promotion and his ideas were not accepted by anyone. So he was suppressed in between the tradition and modernity. We can see that many of the people says that he was not following the modern so that you are not accepted by us. But when he tries to follow the modern, his family will says that we have to follow our native tradition, so you should not follow the modern. So his life is in between, suppressed in between the tradition and the modern. So he thinks that we can follow to a new tradition, like by mixing the native Jewish culture and American culture. So that he faces a lot of the problem. While he was in 16 years of age, he was falling with his first love. But in the first love, he was in love with an American lady. But when she came to know the truth that he belongs to a native black, light color black, she omits him. She says that I need not you. I need only the person from the American. Next of all, he hides his history. He hides his history and he marries an American lady and he gets 2 children. But also after so many long time, he tries to hide his native history. When after many years she came to know about him, he belongs to a native Jew, she left him. So that he says that the human values are not treated, only the history, tradition, etc. are given importance. He says that only the peoples are judged by their color, but they are not judged by the human values, etc. So he loses his job due to the culture, and he also lost his identity. Now, because he is following a true identity, like we can see that he is following the native Jew tradition identity, and he is also following the modern identity, which is in a mixed method. So that he lost his identity when he started to follow latest American identity. At that time, the Second World War emerges, and he is also suppressed a lot because of the war. Now he thinks that it was he thinks that
you have 2 minutes to wrap, Christopher.
Yes, he thinks that if he live in the native Jew, it will be very helpful. He was unable to balance his both the identity. My finding says that when the immigrants came to America, the American Jews feels that they are disconnected from other Jews because they started to follow the American culture also. They started to follow the modernity, so that they feel disconnected from each other, and the female were unable to raise their voice. When the Jewish woman is married by the Americans suppressed them a lot as a daughter or as a husband, or while they are working as the maid, they are molested, etc. And they are not treated as equal. In the colleges also, we can see from this character. When he is also working as an assistant professor, the American is also working as the assistant professor. But because of his history and culture, he is given only less wages. But the Americans are given high amount of salary, and their ideas were treated as a good. But if he says that a good idea also, they did not give the ear to hear that. So the author says that they have to fight for their rights. They have to fight for the rights till they get victory. These are my findings. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Christopher. It was a beautiful paper, and basically, I mean, this is after a lot of paper on myth, and it's a paper on history. So it's a beautiful paper touching upon the clash between tradition and modernity, touching upon the clash between the American dream and the dark reality. So thank you, Christopher. We will go to our next presenter, Naveen. Do we have Naveen?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So please let me share my screen. Ma'am, it's not allowed. Please allow me to access to share the screen.
Organizers, hosts.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think Naveen can't share his screen.
Please enable me to share the screen.
Wait.
You have 10 minutes, so try to finish it.
Yes.
Is it happening?
I think, ma'am, it's showing you cannot start screen while others participating. Someone is sharing.
Someone is sharing is already sharing screen. So
is it the Christopher's screen, which, I mean, has he unshared it?
Yeah.
Ma'am,
Now,
Naveen can share.
yes, ma'am. So now it's enabled. Thank you, panelist.
Yeah, please.
Okay. The screen is visible, ma'am?
Yes.
My name is Naveen. I'm a research scholar in French at Amit University, Jaipur. So my topic is, first of all, I welcome the respected session chair, Kitika ma'am, and all my colleague research. I welcome for your presentation. So my topic is unearthing the traumatic past and exploring identity, memory, and ethnic conflict in Gales 5 small country. Okay, now, the small country, it's a novel, it's a debut novel written by the rapper, the singer, composer of France. His name is Gaël Faye. And today's agenda is we're going to talk about introduction and understanding identity, how the memory and ethnic conflict, they are interlinked. And also we are going to find the discussion results and final conclusion. Okay, before going forward, let's discuss why this study is very important. Okay, why do we actually need this study? Well, as we are the matured person, or we are mature people, we face discrimination or suffering in terms of daily basis, whether it can be based on religion, whether it be based on caste, or in working place. However, we can always defend it since we are mature. But when it comes to the matter of adolescence, so adolescence, it's a transition period between childhood to adulthood. So at this stage, they find self-discovery and they mark by physical and physiological changes. At this age, they will not be able to identify what's good or what's bad. So this study, the sheds lights on the significance of adolescents' mental health. It's a contemporary issue, and this social problem is increasing day by day. However, many international organizations and government organizations, they have been focusing on this to solve this issue. So, however, it's our responsibility and moral obligation to work on this contemporary issue. Now, why I have chosen this novel, Petit Pays? So it's one of this novel, investigates on the rights of adolescents, or the priorities, or cultural surroundings, and the mental health of these adolescents, which is, located at the massive population of African youth. The personal narrative provides insight into how violence affects youth and shapes their identity. We'll move on to the next slide. So this is a small introduction. Small country. So it's a debut novel written by Gaël Faye. It won Prix Goncourt in 2016, which is one of the most prestigious literary awards in France. Also, it was made into film 2020. Now the novel narrated, of course, it's a biography, but it's not strictly biography. Some of the lyrical prose and metaphor has been added since, to cherish and to blossom the representation. The theme is powerful themes are the identity, memory, ethnical conflict, and childhood trauma. The novel inspired by the author's own family, where he was raised and born in Burundi. It's one of the African countries, which shares the landlocked, shares the border between Rwanda. You can see the picture on the right side. These are the two African countries, and surrounded by the largest African lakes and the lush green. Next slide. The novel is based on personal experience, tracing journey to character named Gabriel. Gabriel is a protagonist. So in place of the author, he mentioned Gabriel as a protagonist. Gabriel enjoys, he had a very content childhood where he's just wandering with his friends, exploring the lakes and mountains. Of course, we have also, all of us, we had a remarkable memory compared to, if we recall our childhood. Hope all of us must have this kind of enjoyment. You can look at the pictures on the right side. They're just, of course, they are up to mischief. In the beginning of the novel, the writer recalls a funny moment that they used to steal mangoes from the neighbor, and they used to resell to him. So that looks something funny. Now, the marker of identity between these two antagonists, that is, there are two communities, that is Hutus and Tutsi, during 90s Burundian civil war, so neighboring Rwandan genocide. Whereas Hutus are majority in terms of population, which contributes about 84%, as Tutsi about minor about 15%. However, this massacre, or we have to call Rwandan genocide, so which led to a family, flee them from the Rwanda. Okay, so the novel is also tribute to nostalgia, identity, and the collective responsibility of war, horror, and exile. Now, based on this, we did a literature survey. These are the previous research analysis. Just to give a crux of it, the first finding shows that the Burundi is
you have 3 minutes to wrap up, please.
Okay. Whereas Burundi has a second dentist, densely populated country, has severe poverty and inequality. Burundi, malnutrition and diseases. The second finding, it shows that youth violence are linked to identity. So with the background of this, we have this aim or research questions. How the themes or identity crises are shown in Petit Pays. What insight does Petit Pays shed on the lights of young boy coping with trauma? Does the novel echo finding from the research and youth violence linked to identity? How does the protagonist, Gabriel, navigate his multicultural identity? Next, understanding identity. So just to give a glimpse of this, he asked his father one interesting question. So what is the difference between Hutu and Tutsi? He says Hutus are, has a broad nose, and whereas the Tutsis are tall and skinny. So that's how it shows the remarkable identification or ethnical identity. In fact, he asked, with the child perspective, why do people kill one another? So of course, this question arises, it arises for us also. Even sometimes we ask, why do people kill one another? Of course, he has to face the dual identity because of the exile. He has to move to France. There he finds, because he born to a French father and a Rwandan black mother. So there they are not ready to accept him as a France because there is a mixed race. So he finds not only as an individual and also as a extent to his identity extend to individual and group communities. So these are the causes of the ethnic conflict, why it happened. So these it can be causes can be said, the more young men participated, which are marginalized in large number due to young men, and pre-colonial, which has a very good effect, a significant effect in terms of, this they divided both the race. Next, look at the aftermath. What are the consequences? Well, this is the genocide, the massacre, which led to killing almost 8 lakh people. It's not a small number. 8 lakh people were, have been massacred. You can look at the picture. Thanks to the original picture, I could able to collect. Next, the ethnic conflict. The last, there is a loss of infrastructure destruction, psychological disease, as of the which the post aftermath effect. You can see the pictures. Next, the other effect is thousands of children are often traumatized. They have been since they lost their parents. The other one, next picture, you can see that many refugees have fled to the region. can see the picture on the right side. So we can feel the haunting memories on his face. It shows that it's heart-wrenching to see that. So, however, the finding shows that children who are the survivors of the war survivor, it shows that post-traumatic stress disorder, which is something psychiatric morbidity, which possesses after having the victims of war. Now comes to the discussion and results. So quickly brief, since we are running out of time. So analyzing past trauma and its influence identity, collective memory, and can aid healing. In other words, having a sense of ethic pride, involvement in ethic practice and culture. It's one of the racial ethnic group may protect mental health. So through this novel, the Gale give a he says that go back to a country. Okay, so country. So having ethnic pride, it's not something bad. You can always go for it. He says that. The final last conclusion. So there is an inversion relation between ethnic identity and the violent behavior across time. The study argues the violence has been political rather than ethnic. Also, this novel denounces that the recruitment of recruitment of children in the war. The poverty is the root cause of ignorance and literacy, and is referred to as marginality. And the education is the only solution to overcome poverty and subjugation. So these are my references.
Thank you, Navin.
Thank you for your all attention.
Thank you.
So
it was a beautiful paper, actually, with the pictures and evocative pictures. Definitely, it can actually, the pictures are more vibrant. They can actually tell a story altogether. I'll be more interested to know how violence and identity, they shape each other, because in world literature, they are very much important, in violence and identity, how they are shaping each other. Because your story, the story you were depicting is also a story of a young man in a Burton land. And now the time is also, as we all know, what is happening today nowadays, I mean, with Ukraine and Israel and Palestine. So this is actually very important, how, I mean, this kind of work and this kind of discussion is very important in today's
exactly, ma'am. I agree with you. This is a contemporary issue happening. Thank you. Thank you for your time, all the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen. Next, can we have Kavya, if Kavya is there? Please unshare your screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Kavya.
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am. I'm here.
Yes, you are audible. Please start your presentation.
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
So you have 10 minutes. Please try to wrap up within time because we are running a little late.
Just a second. Is it visible, ma'am?
No, it's not visible. If it's not getting, if there is any technical issue, you can just start your paper if it's all right.
Yeah. 1 second, 1 second.
It's not visible yet.
Is it visible now?
Yeah, now it's coming. Yeah, it's now visible. Corporeal politics of memory.
Yes, ma'am. So the title of my paper is Corporeal Politics of Memories, Defining the Body in the Post-Colonial Era. To introduce myself, I'm Kavya Prasad. research scholar, Department of English, Central University, Karnataka. So to begin with, let me give you a brief idea about my paper. It mainly talks about the fundamentality of the body in the post-colonial narratives. And when you take, so it focuses on an egalitarian approach to body-mind concept, or more, it gives a supremacy to the body or the corporeal. So when it comes to the study of, during the, it began with body-mind monoism, where body and mind was given an equal importance in the beginning, or it was considered as one and the whole. But with the advent of the study of memory, what happened was that there was more significance given to the mental or the mind. So the study of memory has emerged as hegemonic in circumventing the physical sense of being as significant or secondary. But the mind and its functionality is rudimentally based on the corporeal understanding of the self. So as stated by Nietzsche, philosophy has no more than an interpretation of the body and a misunderstanding of the body. So the mind is always related or connected, or is rudimentally based on the body. So the invisibility of the body in the mainstream is questioned through this research. And I have tried to bring in an egalitarian approach to the body-mind concept. And I have used body in comprehending memory in a collective consciousness. So the main research problems here are the invisibility of the body in the mainstream, and how the body how the body becomes the text or the text medium in the dissemination of memories and thereby culture, and how the body becomes the means of perceiving an individual or a social sensibility. So to begin with, let me give you the etymology of the term corporeal. It begins from the Middle English term corporeal, which was termed in the 1610s, which means of a material or physical nature, not mental or spiritual. And this is equivalent to the Latin term corporeus, of the nature of a body, which is derived from the root word corpus, which means body, living, or the dead. It is also given a Proto-Indo-European root, which means body, corp, which means body, form, and appearance. So when you talk about corporeality, it was in the 1990s that witnessed the corporeal turn, where the material body that was once marginalized to the peripheries emerged as the center. And unlike the Cartesian philosophy of the body, so the Cartesian philosophy of the body, in which René Descartes talks about the body-mind dualism. But when you talk about Descartes' philosophy, even though he says that body and mind are two different entities, he also acknowledges the fact that the body and mind has a functionality as a whole. And it is difficult in viewing the body in automata or in isolation. And in his 1637 work, Discours de la Méthode, he mentions or he accepts the duality of the mental and the physical, while he simultaneously accepts the difficulty in viewing the body in automata, that is in isolation. And he says that human body bears the mark of history, and the mind also bears it because it resides in the body. So as such, body is a mark of memory, it is presentative of history, and it is a science of thought. So as such, he says that mind and memory is also evidently social rather than being rational. It is more empirical rather than rational. Thus, the mind or memory can also be considered largely physical. So when you look at the corporeal diversities in comprehending memory, the study of memory is generally oriented to the mental or the self, not the physical. So here, foregrounding the physicality of the body matter in understanding the mind and memory, this paper raises the issue of the body pushed to the margins, and how the body, how prominent is the body as a physical, social, political, and cultural entity, and how it becomes an agency that mediates memory. So human body is a site of differences that portrays the significant other. And when it comes to post-colonial writing especially, body is usually presented as a perpetuation of and resistance to colonial epistemologies like racialism, feminism, etc. So this paper also attempts to study such differences of power, specifically in understanding the memories of the past through the materiality of the human body. So the body is utilized as a site of memory and is conceptualized in parallel to Pierre Nora's understanding of lieu de mémoire, where body becomes a site of memory. And this memory, it can be memories of unification of or division, or acceptance or resistance, of power or vulnerability, and of the self or other. So bodies are sites in which social constructions of differences are mapped onto human bodies. And to understand bodies as a locus of power, we have to look into or begin with Marx and Foucault's understanding and their statements of body as a central point in analyzing the shape of power. Foucault in his Discipline and Power has also discussed the corporeal significality, giving more importance to the physiological viewpoint, while he asserts the historical influences of human physiology. So now, while talking about the post-colonial body, the human body is deployed as a corporeal metaphor that represents memory. It is either through material body, or it is either through body as an object or symbol, or body as a surface material or a device that conducts the object. Post-colonial narratives present human bodies that have suffered violence, trauma, undergone discrimination and oppression, and they are reiterated or remembered through the body. Stories of victims and survivors who present their corporeal self is emblematic of collective whole. It's not just personal narratives, it represents a collective whole and helps one comprehend the equity of the physical and the psychological selves. Now here I've taken into study a few oral histories, and the title of the book is Aftermath, an Oral History of Violence by Meenakshi Verma. So this is an oral history depicting the collective violence during and after the partition, and is a sensitive portrayal of the most formidable days of the post-colonial era that the nation encountered. And post-colonial narratives associate.
The slides are not moving.
Just a minute.
Okay.
Is it, ma'am?
Yeah, that's fine.
Post-colonial narratives associate the body with gender, race,
2 minutes
religion.
more. Kavya, you have 2 minutes more. You have 2 minutes
okay,
more.
Okay, ma'am. So the post-colonial narratives associate the body with gender, race, religion, nationalism, and this research tries to keep all these differences and it generalizes the body as a body. And in most victim stories, feminization of the body is a commonality, and it is explicit in experiences of the partition as well. So the narratives of the partition discusses women's body, how bodies become a means of inflicting violence and torture, and as Meenakshi Verma writes, these narratives both mourns and extols a woman's body. The corporeal self is utilized as an agency that conveys meanings and while representing the dichotomies of the period of post-colonialism. So let me give you 2 examples from the oral histories. There is a chapter titled Adha, which means the halved. It is a story of it is the story of a lady named Kesar Devi, and she is addressed as Adha by her community. And this is a metaphor of how her body and her life have been halved by the partition. And as quoted by Meenakshi Verma, a metaphor for people who have been uprooted and dislocated and have had to reconstruct their lives and their identities in the new surroundings. So she is being called Adha as a symbolizing her cut of breast during the partition violence. Her mutilated breasts lead to an imposition of an identity onto her through the sign of violence on her body. So mutilated breasts and circumcised male bodies all become markers of difference or inclusion or exclusion, and the body becomes the text which convey meanings. So the tendency of a community to address a victim through her physiological identity itself manifests the significance of corporeality in identifying and validating lives. So when a physiological body is able to be a marker, and for that, by being the symbol of violence or trauma one undergoes, it is necessary that we acknowledge the value of body as itself. And when placed in a social or political field, that is an intentional body, as suggested by Foucault, body can be of three realms, as the physiological body, an intentional body, and the spirit itself. So this is an intentional body, a body when placed in a social or political field. So the woman was imposed with this identity, and the trauma and humiliation she had to subdue throughout her life is evident in these narratives. So Kesar Devi, Yes, ma'am. Kesar Devi was more than just a symbol. She was a living and literal embodiment of all violations that had accompanied the partition. And body as the text medium. Tattoos are bodily inscriptions as the text or indicators of memory. So while using inscriptions, the body becomes the surface phenomena. They become the symptoms and mode of expression of a hidden interior or depth. So the body becomes a site of memory, as stated by Elizabeth Gross in her essay, Volatile Bodies, dealing with corporeal feminism. She states that body is a text that is marked, traced, written upon by various regimes of power as a series of linkages and as a receptive surface. So to conclude, the writer herself confounds the use of the body as a label or marker of memory. And this selective usage of memory by the community envisaged an identity construction that had renamed a woman or a body as halved or as violated. There are instances where male body has been forcibly circumcised and they have been the person has been addressed as Katwa since his body has been violated. So the human body is identified as a territory and is marked like any national territory. And the verbal indication of body imagery becomes a form of representation or identification of the body constitution. Thus, corporeality validates the person, portraying the prominent entity it is to be seen or visible or identified, and that helps locating an individual in a social or political field. That's it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavya. It was a very interesting paper, but obviously we didn't have enough time to go through it.
Yeah,
but
I was not able to finish it as well, ma'am.
Yeah, because it was a body as a text to disseminate knowledge, memory, to tell a story, to tell your experience.
I had many examples to tell as well.
Yeah, and while listening to your paper, I remember Mahashweta Devi's short story Dopdi. Over there also you can see that how the body functions. Anyways, we will not. We'll go into the next paper presenter. Hem Kanwar. Thank you, Kavya. Hem Kanwar, is he there?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then Suhani Thakur.
Suhani Thakur. No, ma'am. No,
Dhatri seems to be here.
Dhatri.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Yeah, please, Dhatri, you can please present.
Okay. Hello, very good afternoon to all of you. I am Dhatri Parmar, a student of Masters of English, and right now I'm pursuing my master from Maharaja Krishna Kumar CG, Bhavnagar University. Today's my topic of presentation is exploring Draupadi's character and navigating myth and reality through the two texts, Palace of Illusion and Divakaruni and Draupadi by Kajal Zaved. This is a table of content. Obviously, Indian myths are very much well known, and it is deeply woven with our life. And this mythical narrative is providing us a lot of background, and particularly kind of a character which not get proper voice in myths. So the retelling of her character emerges, and that helps in understanding Draupadi's character in contemporary time. And this research will explore the two of the works, the Palace of Illusion and Draupadi, and it also provides a fresh and new perspective to the character of the Draupadi. Let us take a look at how Draupadi signifies in mythology and literature. So in mythology, she didn't get that much of the voice, and on the other hand, while we are looking at the retelling of these mythology and literature, we find that she get voice, and of course she is a central character of the Mahabharata, and her unique birth give her an kind of different identity, and that helps to differentiate her from other women of the time. And of course, her commitment to his dharma is connected with that. Though she has a birth and she has a different background, still she has committed with the dharma. And of course, the Swayamvar incident also signifies that thing. And one of the most central part of that violation of her dignity and honor in during during the Dias games during the Kaurav Sabha, and her divine origin, exceptional virtues, and formidable challenges, which makes her interesting character. And that's why writers and scholars are too much interested to take her character and retell her character in various times, even in modern times too. A brief overview of the Palace of Illusion by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. Of course, it is a retelling, and it reflects the personal narrative of Draupadi. In this novel, we can find that Draupadi addresses as a Panchali throughout the novel, and she born from the fire and yearns love and happiness, but is married to 5 Pandavas brothers and setting to the stage of complex life. So this whole her life journey makes her life too much complex, and that is why the complexity, and she faces the problems that makes her differentiate with other women. And her relationship with Pandavas, we are all aware about the storyline of the Mahabharata, that how Kunti has divided Draupadi in 5 husbands. So this is connected, that makes her character more complex, and that is why her character is kind of very we can say very
Hello.
Ma'am, I think there is some network issue.
Okay, we have to wait for her to be back.
Hello, Deepika ma'am.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, ma'am, good afternoon. This is Dr. Shreya from ASL. Ma'am, actually, due to some technical glitch, one participant couldn't present her paper in technical session 11. So if you allow her to present her paper here, so that will be extremely helpful from your side.
Yeah, actually, there is no problem. I mean, there is no problem about that. Obviously, he or she can present. Yeah, sure. Because I think in this session also there are at least few presenters are not available. They are not present.
Okay. Her name is Preetha. So I asked her to join this session, but I said just wait for some time because I was asking for your like if you are okay with that, then only
no,
tell her.
That's all right. That's absolutely sure.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. Then I am informing her to join for this session. So after this paper, we have another paper in the author's absentia. Our student coordinator will read out the abstract, and after that, if she can join, Preetha can join, then she can present her paper.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
I think Dhatri's internet is down, and she's back. I think. Okay. Yes, please carry on. Please continue.
Okay. So Draupadi, written in Gujarati by Kajal Oza Ved, provide a different perspective to the character of Draupadi, and inner world and struggle of her evolving identity. That how she questioned the societies and gender inequality with the various example of his brother. So she initially providing a questioning spirit which is not given to the Draupadi Maharata. In this novel, we can find love and longing for Lord. So whereas we are looking at the Palace of Illusion, there Draupadi is falls for Karna, but in this novel we can find that she falls for Krishna, and she had a different kind of a devotion and love affection towards the Krishna. And it also addressed the complexity of her role as a queen and reflecting modern women's experience. And of course, in the episode of gambling episode and Dice Games episode, we can find that she is continually questioning these questioning the Kaurava Sabhas and at that time, and also questioning other elders who are present there. So that also give the voice to the Draupadi. And it also empowered and social justice. So we can find of various themes are explored in this novel. Palace of Illusion is emphasized on Draupadi's inner strength and emotional depth and her human vulnerability. On the other hand, Draupadi by Kajal Ozavid challenging societal norms and determination. So both have a same storyline. Still, we can find that they focuses on a different kind of perspective towards looking at the character of the Draupadi. And it also various Draupadies also symbolize the resilience and agency confronting the injustice. She is constantly questioning that. It also provides a multi-dimensional portraits of her, a character evolution that it is multifaceted and so the way she questions, the way she behaves, the way her character in both know. Also we can connect. So we can find out that Draupadi is getting so she has ability to make choice. She is making choice and choosing person incident. So various place she was also making her choices, and also we can connect with it a contemporary time. Okay, ma'am.
In 2 minutes,
in the conclusion, this study paves the way of deeper understanding of how ancient character like Draupadi can continue to influence and inspire discussion on a global context. As literature reshape the narratives of the past and possibilities for reimagining and understanding this character are boundless. This is
Okay. Thank you, Dhatri. I like your paper. I really hope that you have worked upon your paper, because I like your conclusion. So the conclusion was quite I mean, it is something which you should be engaging with, because how because you know, Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni is now being studied quite a lot. So when you are looking at that text, you should be looking at it from a different perspective. I think Dhatri cannot hear me, or I don't know what's happening. So can you hear me? Anyways, thank you. Okay, okay, thank you. Suhani, I think Suhani is not here.
No, ma'am. Suhani is not there.
Priyadarshini is not here. Him not there. And Hannah is not there. So how many are not present? Well, like Priyadarshini, then Hannah, then Imkanwar, then Shuhani, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So there are 4.
There is one student, Shubhanshi Rajawat, and on her absence, I will be presenting her report.
What's her name? What's her name?
Shubhanshi Rajawat.
Okay, Shubhanshi. For Shubhanshi's paper, you will be reading the abstract. Okay, so you can do that. Please tell me the title of the paper.
Ma'am, her topic is a critical analysis of the factors impacting the cultural identity of teachers of French language in CBSE schools.
Okay.
Ma'am, shall I start? Maybe?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
The cultural identity of French teachers in school across Rajasthan is a multi-dimensional phenomenon influenced by a diverse array of factors. As these educators navigate the intricate landscape of foreign language instruction, their effectiveness in the classroom is shaped not only by their linguistic proficiency, but also by a complex interplay of contextual, social, and cultural elements. The cultural identity of teachers is not an isolated facet of their existence. Rather, it is deeply intertwined with their profession, pedagogy, and interaction with students. This critical analysis explores the intricate interplay of factors that influence the cultural identity of French teachers in Central Board of Secondary Education schools in India. French teachers in CBSE schools are often confronted with a unique blend of cultural influences that shape their professional and personal identities. This study delves into the multifaceted dimension of this phenomenon and investigates the factors that influence in shaping the cultural identity of a French teacher. It also tries to put forward the third phase experiences faced by French teachers in maintaining and negotiating their cultural identity in Indian educational landscape. Ma'am, the keyword of this abstract is culture, identity, French teachers, competence.
Okay. So, okay. Thank you. So I think Pritha is not available for reading the paper. Sorry, not Pritha. What's her name? Shubhanshi. Shubhanshi is not available for the reading her paper, right? So and these 4 students are also not present. So in that case, I think we're done with the presentation. I mean, those who are available with them. So thank you all for your beautiful presentation. Most of these papers were really thought-provoking, and there was a beautiful blend of myth, history, and culture, and war, and also at the end we find language also, which was a little bit off the topic, but yes, it was also an interesting abstract. Especially, I first of all, I just wanted to ask if any presenters have any question for their fellow presenters, because most of the papers were very interesting and very thought-provoking. If you have any questions for your fellow panelist. Are there any questions?
Ma'am, I have a question actually for you. A suggestion. I just wanted to ask.
Oh, what's your name? Sorry.
Shivangi.
What's your name? Sorry.
Shivangi. Yes. If there is anything, I was the first presenter.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Michelle, right.
Yes.
Shivangi Shah. So your paper was on, I think, the Draupadi, right?
Yes.
It was. Actually, the thing is, the one point I wanted to tell those about who are actually working on Mahabharata or Ramayana. The thing is, when and particularly the text which I think there are 2 panelists who are actually who worked on the Chitta Banerjee Divakaruni. The thing is, when you are, this particular work has been studied quite a lot, right? So when you are working on this particular text, my only concern is I always want to see what is the new angle you are trying to find out in the paper, right? What is the new angle? Because they have been studied so much. They have been worked upon so much that it's very difficult to find a new angle. That's one thing. Yes. Second thing is when you are giving a feminist perspective also, obviously Draupadi as a focalizer, you are looking at it from the lens of Draupadi that is used in the novel. But in the last paper, I think the Dhatri, I think, said that or somebody said, I don't remember who said that what we're going to learn from these characters in a contemporary age. See, the thing is, I have read Mahabharata the entire text. Okay, and after reading it, because most of us, 99% of us, don't read the Mahabharata as a text, we just read the retellings, right? And we always try to connect with the text and the character from our contemporary perspectives, and that's quite normal because we have our understanding of the contemporary age, and we are looking at those characters from our contemporary lens. But the thing is, when we are looking at a character like Draupadi, and we are pushing that character to the we are pulling that character to the contemporary age and looking at it from the contemporary angles with the contemporary understanding of norms and rules, it would be somewhere unfair to the character also. Because if you place Draupadi in that era when Draupadi's character was portrayed or when Draupadi's character was created, you will see, and when you will read the original Mahabharata, you will read that the character, with all its lack of agency, with all its exploitations of whatever kind, with all its the kind of difficulties the women will have to go through women had to go through at that time, the characters are still surviving the way they can within their limited capacity. And Draupadi's character, the fieriness in Draupadi, especially when Draupadi is talking to, when he is dialoguing with Yudhishthir, when he is, although in the Vastraharan episode, there is not much of a dialogue. In the later part, when in the later part, there is a lot of dialogue, but most importantly, when Draupadi is actually dialoguing with Yudhishthir, or when Draupadi is talking to Krishna's wife, Satyabhama, you will see that how Draupadi is talking about that, how her limited agency has given her that capacity to control the entire household. So my point is, when you are looking at a character, you must not uproot it from its background when it is written, right? And when you are looking at this characters from a contemporary text like this, Chitra Banerjee, Divakaruni, or the other characters, Urmila's character or other characters, you must have an understanding that there's a difference, the lens you are taking, that there must be a difference, must be maintained. And why these retellings are actually, because I'm looking at the dialogic aspect of Mahabharata, so the characters are there. All of a sudden, the retellings are not giving them voices. The retellings are giving them voices because the main narrative has given that openness, has rendered that openness, that unfinalizability in those characters, which is allowing the contemporary readers and retellers to look back and go on talking about it. So it is basically an engagement with the past and the present. The past is being engaged with the present with a new lens, and the dialogue is happening, which is basically a Bakhtinian way of looking at it. So the meaning is not finalized. Draupadi's character is not finalized there. Draupadi's character is evolving, and it will evolve more. That's the point. The time will go on, and the characters will evolve more, because that is the basic feature of language. Okay, that is the basic feature of how meaning evolves, how the readers will look at it, and the readers will go on evolving. So it's through readers, through language, etc., etc. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is
That
there
was
any?
Really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just a.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Ma'am, Preetha.
Yes. Preetha is here. Hello,
Okay,
Preetha is here.
Okay.
Can you see me?
Yeah, yes, I can see you. So you are you will be presenting the paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. So what's the title of your paper?
The title of the paper is When Individual Memory Represents Collective Memory, a Study of the Years by Annie Ernaux. May I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. My paper attempts to study how the Nobel-winning autobiography, The Years, which is published in 2017, which was described as a hybrid memo spanning the period from 1941 to 2006, becomes at once a representation of the personal and the collective memory. So this unofficial history of the post-Second World War France is at once private and collective, subjective and impersonal. And the author places a collective autobiography at the intersection of history, sociology, and literature. She deliberately avoids the first person I, but refers to her past self as only one and she, while the collective pronoun we dominates the narrative. It turns out to be an unofficial socio-political and cultural history of France, as she traces the gradual evolution of time from post-war poverty to the consumer revolution of the 1960s and the liberalist and globalist era of the 1990s and the digital revolution thereafter. It explores a wide spectrum of themes ranging from identity, body, sexuality, class, politics, inequality, religion, war, and aging. It's a rare way of storytelling with no chapter divisions, and it bewilderingly proceed in a single flow. She uses diverse means like photos, notes, diaries, books, radio, television, headlines, and advertising to make a contrasting effect to her personal experience and trauma. The narrative is interspersed with photos and scenes from films to capture her body shapes and positions across time, which acts as freeze frames on memos. They act as the graph of her progression through life and reports on the combination of elements that make her life unique. Her narrative is often punctuated by scenes of feasting with her family and friends on holidays. The nature of this microcosm around the table and their conversations are important markers of the passage of time and social change related to it. In the beginning, it is an animated working class extended family collective constituted of grandparents, parents, uncles, aunts, and cousins. But towards the end of the book, it shrinks to a bourgeois nuclear family with parents, children, and a grandparent, and was further modified to a post-nuclear family with a divorced grandparent, sons, and partners, and one grandchild. As the narrator matures up, her role at the table also changes. As a kid listening to partially comprehensible adult stories, to the shy adolescent partially allowed to participate in the conversations, and finally to an authoritarian hostess. And the themes of the conversation also trace the passage of time. During the 1940s and 50s, it was boisterous adult talk, always harping on the Second World War. During the 60s and 70s, it was about flying saucers, people landing on the moon, emergencies, and the rising cost of living, but always returned to the war times. But something had died within the grandparents who had seen both wars, the full reconstruction of the cities, children growing up, furniture in installments, and the general progress. Life has become far better. And by 1980s and 90s, they simply vanish. And I like to quote from the first part, that is the war years of France. So the conversation during the 40s and 50s around the table always concentrates upon the contemporary reality. For example, they talk about, the people around the table actually talk about her cousins, her grandparents, her uncles. They actually talk about farms where men had been hired hands and girls were housemaids. Factories where they had met, stepped out together and married. The small business to which most ambitious had risen. The only personal details in their stories were births, weddings, and funerals. So it was a small life around them. And their travel narratives were confined to regiments in distant garrison towns and not to beautiful havens as in the present time. So this their existence were entirely filled with hard labor, harsh conditions, and the perils of drink. School appeared as mythical backdrop, and the schoolmaster with his iron ruler for rapping the knuckles was its rough god. So poverty, deprivation, and the restrictions that long predated war marks their words. So it was a timeless night, a bygone era with its difficulties, pleasures, customs, and practical wisdom. And always towards the end of the gatherings, they actually go through the albums, which is a custom long back. Then the scarcity they lived in. She's also referring to the scarcity they lived in during the war times. And it was shared by not only her family, but a vast majority of the French people. She looks around her and found that they lived in scarcity of everything, of objects, images, diversions, explanations of self and the world, whose sources were confined to the catechisms. Every object in the house has been bought before the war. The saucepans were blackened and missing their handles. The bowls enamel worn away, and holes in the jars were plugged with metallic petals because they were wallowing in extreme poverty. And coats were revamped, shirt collars were turned inside out, and Sunday clothes were actually extended to every day. Everything were mended and used for maximum duration, so nothing was thrown away. Kitchen garbage was used as garden fertilizer, dung of passing horses collected for potted plants, and newspapers were used for wrapping different objects and even for wiping bottoms in the lavatories. So people traveled on foot or by bicycles, and she says the background was silence and the bicycle measured the speed of life. So what her family and her relatives actually undergo is can be actually extended to the majority of the French society. And there were, in relation to war or during that particular period, there were dead children in every family. And the children actually died due to chickenpox, whooping cough, mumps, measles, bronchitis, ear infection, tuberculosis, and meningitis. And the author had a dead sister in her family also. She was named Jeanette, and she died at the age of 6. And there were another group of children who were actually called war children. They were peaky and anemic and with the spotted nails. So the personal memory actually extends to collective memory. And this is this is just one example, and I'm not going into details. And I like to conclude that the novel gives a cross section of the post-Second World War France, intertwining itself with personal memoria. In her own opinion, she was actually carrying out an ethnological study of herself, which in turn proves to be that of a society too. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratham. Thank you so much. It was a really interesting paper. And it is the best thing about the paper is that you very evocatively try to reflect how personal memory and the collective memory shape the identities. And I think this is not just for this particular, in the context of not this particular novel. Obviously, the kind of situation which is going on in today's time. Also, this is a very important aspect to be looked at, because the identities always shape, right? And I think today in the morning I got to see a video where the old mom is it's a video message from Israel that you know, the kind of the kind of trauma they are going through, and the kind of suffering the children are going through. Obviously, so when they grow up, they have their individual share of memory, but they have their collective share of memory with which they are growing up. So it's a very interesting paper too. Thank you so much. Okay. So,
thank you.
Is there any other question for the fellow presenters? If we don't have any other questions, then the hosts, I think we can wrap it. Yes. Hello.
Yes. Ma'am, yes, Kavya, you mentioned about a short story after my presentation. Can you just repeat the name? I was talking about body.
Yeah, I talked about Mahashweta Devi's short story. It's called Dopdi, D-O-P-D-I. It's a retelling of Draupadi. Sorry, it's a retelling of Draupadi's narrative. So basically, there is a reference of mutilated breast, and the background is of Naxalite movement. So again, if you read the story, you will find it's originally written in Bangla, but Bengali, but you will find the translation. So you can have a look. Dopdi, D-O-P-D-I. Okay. Thank you so much. So yeah, the hosts, over to you. Thank you so much. Thank you panelists.
Thank you, ma'am. Your presence in this conference made it all the more special, and we were grateful for your support. Once again, thank you, ma'am, for giving your precious time to us, and special thank you to Amity University host for this conference.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.